I opened the front door and froze. My wife Brenda was sitting on our cream-colored couch, laughing with Kevin Walsh, my lawyer. Their heads were bent together over papers spread across the coffee table, the same inheritance documents I'd asked Kevin to handle last month. My stomach twisted into a knot. Brenda's hand brushed against his as she pointed at something on the page, and they both smiled like they were sharing a private joke. My chest tightened. I stood there in the doorway, grocery bags still in my hands, watching the two people I trusted most in the world betray me right in my own living room. They didn't even notice me. Brenda giggled at something Kevin whispered, and my heart shattered into a million pieces. This isn't real, I told myself, but deep down, I knew it was. They were planning something together, something that involved my family's money, the inheritance my grandmother left me. My hands started shaking. I wanted to scream, to throw the groceries at them, to demand answers. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching my life fall apart. I quietly backed out of the doorway before they saw me. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might burst through my chest. I walked to the kitchen on shaky legs and set the grocery bags down on the counter. My mind was spinning in circles. How long has this been going on? Are they dating? Are they stealing from me? Both? I gripped the edge of the granite counter so hard my knuckles turned white. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I forced them back. I couldn't cry now. I needed to think clearly. Brenda had been acting strange for weeks, taking secret phone calls, smiling at her phone screen, coming home late from work meetings. I'd ignored the signs because I trusted her. I loved her. We'd been married for 3 years, and I thought we were happy. But now everything made sense in the worst possible way. And Kevin, my lawyer, my friend from college, he'd helped me with everything after Grandma Rose died. He knew exactly how much money I inherited, where it was kept, and how to access it. I felt sick to my stomach. They were using me. I heard Brenda's voice getting louder in the living room. She was saying goodbye to Kevin. I quickly wiped my face and pretended to unpack groceries. The front door closed, and a minute later, Brenda walked into the kitchen looking relaxed and happy. Too happy. "Hey, Stanley, you're home early," she said, kissing me quickly on the cheek. Her perfume smelled different, expensive, new. Kevin stopped by to drop off some papers. Nothing important. Nothing important. The lie came out so easily. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake the truth out of her, but instead I smiled. "That's nice of him," I said quietly. My voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Brenda didn't notice. She hummed while opening the fridge, completely calm, like she hadn't just been plotting with my lawyer minutes ago. I thought she loved me. I really did. We'd built a life together, this house, our plans, our future. But standing there watching her lie so smoothly, I realized I didn't know her at all. That moment changed everything. I couldn't let this slide. I wouldn't. My name is Stanley Griffin. I'm 32 years old, and I've always been the kind of person who plays by the rules. I believe in fairness, honesty, and treating people right. I'm not someone who starts fights or causes drama. My whole life, I've been the peacemaker, the one who stays calm when everyone else panics, the one who thinks before acting. I work as a graphic designer from home, which means I'm independent and careful with money. That's probably why my grandmother, Rose Caldwell, left me her entire estate when she passed away last year. She knew I'd be responsible with it. The inheritance was life-changing, almost $2 million in cash, plus her beautiful house in the countryside and several valuable antiques. I'd planned to invest most of it and use some to start my own design business. Brenda had been so supportive when I told her about the money, or at least I thought she was. Now I understood that her support was really just greed disguised as love. But here's what Brenda didn't know about me. I'm also patient, strategic, and incredibly stubborn when someone wrongs me. She thought I was soft, weak, easy to fool. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Over the next few days, I started watching Brenda closely. I paid attention to every phone call, every text message notification, every time she said she was running errands. I became invisible in my own home, moving quietly, observing everything. I noticed she'd changed her phone password. She used to use our anniversary date. Now it was something else. She took her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. When texts came in late at night, she'd smile at the screen before quickly turning it face down. One morning, I checked the browser history on our shared laptop. She'd deleted everything, which she never used to do. That confirmed my suspicions. She was hiding something big. I started keeping notes in a small journal I hid in my car. Every suspicious thing, every weird behavior, every time she mentioned Kevin's name a little too casually. I wrote it all down with dates and times. I needed proof, solid evidence that would hold up if things got ugly. And I had a feeling things were going to get very ugly. My grandmother had taught me something important. Never fight angry, fight smart. So that's exactly what I planned to do. A week later, Brenda announced we were having dinner with Kevin and his wife Carolyn. My stomach dropped when she said it, but I smiled and agreed. The restaurant she chose was expensive, the kind of place we rarely went to. When we arrived, Kevin and Carolyn were already there. Carolyn looked uncomfortable the whole night. She barely spoke, just pushed food around her plate while Kevin and Brenda laughed about inside jokes that excluded both of us. I watched them carefully. The way Brenda leaned toward Kevin when she talked, how his eyes lingered on her face a second too long, how they both avoided looking at me directly. Carolyn noticed too. I could tell by how tightly she gripped her wine glass and how her jaw clenched whenever Kevin touched Brenda's arm, accidentally. At one point, Brenda excused herself to the bathroom. Kevin watched her walk away, then immediately checked his phone and smiled. My heart raced. I glanced at Carolyn and our eyes met. In that brief moment, I saw everything I needed to know. She suspected too. We were both being betrayed. After dinner, I made a decision. I needed to talk to Carolyn alone. The next day, I called Carolyn and asked her to meet me for coffee. She hesitated at first, but then agreed. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, far from anywhere Kevin or Brenda might see us. Carolyn looked tired and sad. When I told her what I'd seen, the papers, the laughter, the secret meetings, she started crying. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. Kevin's been distant for months. He takes calls late at night and says it's work. He smells like perfume that isn't mine. I found hotel receipts in his car. Hotel receipts. My blood ran cold. So they weren't just planning to steal my money, they were having a full affair. Carolyn pulled out her phone and showed me photos she'd secretly taken, text message screenshots with hearts and kissy emojis, a receipt from an expensive jewelry store, a credit card statement showing charges at romantic restaurants on nights Kevin claimed he was working late. We sat there for 2 hours, comparing notes, piecing together their betrayal like a puzzle. By the time we finished, we both knew the truth. Our spouses were planning to steal my inheritance and run away together. Carolyn looked at me with fierce determination. "What do we do?" she asked. I smiled for the first time in days. We fight back, together. Carolyn and I became secret partners. We started gathering evidence systematically. She installed tracking software on Kevin's phone while he was sleeping and shared the password with me. I did the same with Brenda's laptop when she left it unlocked one afternoon. Within days, we had access to everything, their texts, emails, phone calls, even their locations in real time. What we discovered made my blood boil. Kevin and Brenda had been having an affair for almost 6 months, starting right around the time my grandmother died. The texts were disgusting, full of love declarations and plans for their future together. But worse than the affair were their detailed plans to steal my inheritance. Kevin had drafted fake legal documents that would transfer most of my money into accounts he controlled. He'd planned to tell me they were tax protection trusts that I needed to sign quickly. Brenda's job was to convince me to sign without reading everything carefully, to trust Kevin completely. Once they had the money, they planned to divorce us both and move to Costa Rica together. They'd already looked at houses. My hands shook as I read through their messages. They talked about us like we were obstacles, not human beings. Brenda called me too trusting and stupid to ever figure it out. Kevin called Carolyn boring and clingy. They laughed about how easy we were to manipulate. I needed to test how far they'd go. One evening, I pretended to be upset about money troubles. "The inheritance is more complicated than I thought," I told Brenda over dinner. "Kevin says I might lose a huge chunk to taxes unless I restructure everything quickly." Brenda's eyes lit up. "You should definitely listen to Kevin," she said, a little too eagerly. He knows what he's doing. Maybe you should just sign whatever he suggests and not worry about the details. There it was. She was actively pushing me toward their trap. I nodded slowly, pretending to consider it. You're probably right. I trust Kevin completely. He's been such a good friend. Brenda smiled wide. Exactly. Kevin would never steer you wrong. I wanted to throw my dinner plate at her lying face. Instead, I excused myself to the bathroom and texted Carolyn. She just pushed me to sign without reading. They're moving forward with the plan. Carolyn replied immediately. Kevin asked me about divorce lawyers today. Said he was asking for a friend. They're getting bolder. That night, I lay awake next to Brenda, listening to her breathe peacefully while she slept. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did Kevin. Carolyn and I were ready to strike. I made an appointment with a different lawyer, someone Kevin didn't know. Her name was Denise Frazier, and she specialized in fraud cases. I brought everything: the fake documents Kevin had prepared, screenshots of texts between him and Brenda, bank statements showing suspicious transfers Kevin had already made from my accounts without my knowledge. Denise's face grew darker as she reviewed everything. This is serious fraud, she said. Your lawyer has committed multiple crimes here: breach of fiduciary duty, attempted theft, conspiracy, and your wife is an accomplice. She looked at me carefully. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Press charges immediately, or what? I asked. Denise leaned back. Or we could catch them in the act. Let them think they've won, get them to incriminate themselves even more thoroughly, then bring down the hammer when they're most confident. I thought about Brenda's smug face, Kevin's arrogant texts, the way they'd laughed about how stupid I was. I want option 2, I said firmly. Denise smiled. Then we need to be very careful and very smart. Are you ready for this? I nodded. I'm ready. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt powerful instead of powerless. The game had changed, and I was about to win. Denise helped me set up a fake signing ceremony. Kevin thought he was finally getting me to sign the fraudulent documents. I invited him to our house with Brenda there for support. I even dressed up nicely and made coffee, playing the role of the trusting, naive wife perfectly. Kevin arrived with his briefcase, looking confident and professional. Brenda sat close to him on the couch, too close. I pretended not to notice. Thank you so much for handling this, Kevin, I said sweetly. I honestly don't understand most of it, but Brenda says you're the best, so I trust you completely. Kevin's smile was like a shark's. That's what friends are for, Stanley. These documents will protect your inheritance from taxes and legal issues. You just need to sign here, here, and here. He pointed to signature lines without explaining what anything actually meant. Brenda nodded encouragingly. It's smart to do this quickly, honey. Don't overthink it. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the first signature line. Kevin and Brenda both leaned forward slightly, barely breathing. Then I set the pen down. Actually, I have a few questions first, I said. Kevin's smile faltered. Questions? Yes, this section here. I pointed to the fake trust document. It says you'll have full control over my accounts. Why is that necessary? Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it. Brenda jumped in. It's just legal language, Stanley. Don't worry about it. I looked at Brenda, my face completely innocent. But I want to understand what I'm signing. My grandmother always told me to read everything carefully. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Kevin tried to laugh it off. Of course. Let me explain. While he stumbled through a fake explanation, I secretly recorded everything on my phone hidden in my pocket. Over the next 2 weeks, I pretended to be the perfect, unsuspecting wife. I smiled at Brenda's lies. I thanked Kevin for his help. I even sent them both thoughtful gifts: a fancy watch for Kevin, an expensive handbag for Brenda. I wanted them to think they'd completely fooled me, that I was so stupid and trusting that victory was inevitable. Meanwhile, Carolyn and I continued gathering evidence. We collected everything: hotel security footage showing them together, restaurant receipts, jewelry purchases, texts planning their escape to Costa Rica. Carolyn found plane tickets Kevin had already purchased for 2 weeks from now. One-way flights for him and Brenda. They were planning to disappear with my money on December 15th. Denise Frazier worked behind the scenes, filing protective orders on my accounts that Kevin didn't know about. Every dollar of my inheritance was now frozen, accessible only to me. If Kevin tried to transfer anything, alarms would go off immediately. I also discovered Kevin had done this before. Denise found records of another client who'd complained about him years ago. The case had been settled quietly, but the pattern was clear. Kevin was a professional thief who used his law license to steal from trusting clients. This wasn't just personal revenge anymore. This was justice. Brenda started planning a surprise party for my birthday, which was on December 10th, 5 days before they planned to leave the country. How thoughtful. She invited all our friends and family, booked a nice restaurant, even ordered a custom cake. I pretended to be excited and grateful. What Brenda didn't know was that I'd already talked to every single person on the guest list. I'd shown them some of the evidence, not all of it, just enough to make them understand what was really happening. My best friend Monica Schroeder was furious on my behalf. My brother Russell Griffin wanted to punch Kevin in the face. Even my quiet mother said some words I'd never heard her use before. They all agreed to come to the party and act normal, to not reveal that they knew anything. Because the party wasn't going to be a celebration, it was going to be an exposure. Denise had arranged for a process server to be there. Carolyn had agreed to come with her own evidence about Kevin's betrayal, and I had prepared a speech that would burn Brenda and Kevin's lies to the ground in front of everyone they knew. The trap was set. I just had to wait 5 more days. 5 days of pretending. 5 days of fake smiles. Then justice would rain down like a thunderstorm. The night before my birthday party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Brenda, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 years of marriage, and it had all been a lie. Or had it? Maybe she loved me once, before greed took over. Maybe Kevin had been a good friend before he saw an opportunity to get rich. Or maybe they'd both always been monsters, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Brenda shifted in her sleep, mumbling something I couldn't understand. I looked at her face in the darkness, trying to feel something, anger, sadness, anything. But I just felt empty. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by a stranger wearing her face. Tomorrow, that stranger would be exposed. Tomorrow, everyone would know what she'd done. Part of me felt guilty for what I was about to do. Public humiliation was harsh, cruel even. But then I remembered how she'd laughed with Kevin over papers meant to steal my grandmother's legacy. I remembered her calling me too stupid to figure it out in text messages. I remembered how easily she'd lied to my face, day after day, week after week. The guilt disappeared. Tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And truth, no matter how painful, was always better than living in a beautiful lie. My birthday party started at 7 p.m. I arrived at the restaurant early, wearing a red dress Brenda had bought me last month, probably with my own money, now that I thought about it. The private room looked beautiful, decorated with balloons and flowers. Brenda had done a good job making everything look perfect. She always was good at appearances. Guests started arriving. My family, my friends, Brenda's coworkers, even some of Kevin's lawyer colleagues. Carolyn arrived alone, her face calm, but her eyes fierce. She nodded at me slightly. Denise Frazier came disguised as my old college friend, so Kevin wouldn't recognize her as a lawyer. The process server waited outside, ready. Kevin and Brenda worked the room like politicians, smiling and laughing, playing the roles of devoted spouse and helpful friend. They had no idea what was coming. I watched them like a hawk watches mice. Every fake laugh, every phony hug, every lie wrapped in a smile. They thought they were celebrating my birthday. They were actually attending their own funeral. At 7:30, everyone gathered around as they brought out my cake. Brenda made a short speech about how much she loved me, how lucky she was to be my wife. I almost laughed at the audacity. Then it was my turn to speak. I stood up, glass in hand, and smiled at the room. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I have something important to share tonight." I looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Brenda was beaming. Kevin looked relaxed, confident, perfect. "This past year has taught me a lot about trust," I said slowly. "About love, about who people really are when they think no one's watching." Brenda's smile faltered slightly. "When my grandmother Rose Caldwell died, she left me everything. Not because I deserved it more than anyone else, but because she trusted me. She believed I would honor her memory and use her gift wisely. I paused. That inheritance made me a target. Now I looked directly at Brenda. Her face was starting to go pale. Some people saw that money and decided they wanted it more than they wanted honesty, more than they wanted love, more than they wanted basic human decency. Kevin started to stand up. "Stanley, maybe we should—" "Sit down, Kevin," I said coldly. Something in my voice made him freeze. "Actually, you should stay standing. You're going to want to run in a minute." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the restaurant's TV screen. "I thought my wife loved me," I said, my voice shaking now with real emotion, "until I found out she was secretly dating my lawyer to steal my inheritance." The room gasped. Brenda's face went white. That's insane," she stammered. "Stanley, what are you?" I pressed play. The TV screen lit up with text messages, Brenda and Kevin's text messages, the ones where they called me stupid, where they laughed about manipulating me, where they planned their Costa Rica escape, where they talked about the life they'd build together on my grandmother's money. The room was dead silent except for the sound of people's shocked breathing. Brenda tried to grab my phone, but Monica blocked her. Kevin attempted to leave, but my brother Russell stepped in front of the door. "There's more," I said, my voice steady now. I showed the fake legal documents Kevin had prepared, the hotel receipts, the plane tickets, everything. Carolyn stood up, tears streaming down her face. "He's my husband," she said to the room, "and he's been lying to me for 6 months, planning to abandon our marriage, our life, everything." One of Kevin's lawyer colleagues, an older man named Gerald Ramsey, stood up, looking furious. "Kevin, is this true? Did you attempt to defraud a client?" Kevin's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. Brenda found her voice. You recorded us? You spied on us? That's illegal!" Denise Frazier stepped forward, pulling out her business card. "Actually, I'm a lawyer specializing in fraud. And no, it's not illegal. But what you two did? Very illegal. Conspiracy to commit fraud, theft, breach of fiduciary duty, and about 6 other crimes I can list." The process server entered right on cue, handing Kevin official papers. "Kevin Walsh, you're being sued for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. You've also been reported to the State Bar Association." He handed Brenda a separate set of papers. "Brenda Patterson, divorce papers. Your wife is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and fraud." Brenda's legs seemed to give out. She sat down hard, papers falling from her hands. Kevin's face was the color of old cheese. His colleague Gerald was already on the phone, likely calling the Bar Association himself. I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. My family looked proud. My friends looked satisfied. Brenda's coworkers looked horrified. They'd clearly had no idea who she really was. "I just gave you everything," I said, looking at Brenda. "My love, my trust, my home. And you tried to take the one thing I had left of my grandmother, the woman who raised me when my parents died, who taught me everything about honor and integrity." My voice broke. "How could you?" Brenda looked up at me, mascara running down her face. For a second, I thought she might apologize, might show some shred of remorse. Instead, she hissed, "You're not as smart as you think you are." I smiled, cold and sharp. "No, I'm smarter. That's why you lost." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Kevin lost his law license within a week. The Bar Association investigation found not just my case, but 2 others he'd attempted over the years. He was facing criminal charges and multiple lawsuits. His wife Carolyn filed for divorce, taking half of everything in the settlement. Kevin, the man who'd tried to steal millions, ended up broke and disgraced. Brenda tried to fight the divorce, claiming she deserved half of my inheritance. My lawyer, Denise, laughed in court. With all the evidence of fraud and adultery, Brenda got nothing. Not the house, not the car, not a penny of my grandmother's money. The judge called her attempt audacious and offensive. Brenda moved back in with her parents in another state, her reputation destroyed. Her boss fired her after the scandal, saying the company couldn't be associated with someone so dishonest. Her friends abandoned her one by one. I heard through mutual contacts that she was working retail now, struggling to make rent. A part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for her. Then I remembered her laughing with Kevin over plans to steal everything from me, and the pity evaporated. She'd made her choices. Now she lived with the consequences. Carolyn and I became close friends through everything. She'd lost her marriage too, but she said the truth had set her free. I was living with a monster and calling it love, she told me over coffee one day. You saved me from wasting more years on him. She started a new life, went back to school, moved to a new apartment, started dating again. I was happy for her. She deserved better than Kevin's lies. As for me, I threw myself into work. I finally started my design business using part of the inheritance, exactly as I'd always planned. Clients came quickly. I was good at what I did, and now I had the freedom to be picky about projects. I bought my grandmother's countryside house back from the estate sale and renovated it exactly how she would have loved. Every weekend, I drove out there and spent time in her gardens, feeling close to her again. The inheritance was secure, protected by new lawyers and ironclad trusts. My financial advisor was a stern woman named Evelyn Fitzgerald, who didn't take nonsense from anyone. She invested the money wisely, and it grew steadily. Grandma Rose's legacy was safe. I'd kept my promise to her. Sometimes people asked if I regretted how harshly I'd exposed Brenda and Kevin. I always said no. They'd planned to humiliate me in private. I'd simply return the favor in public. Fair was fair. 6 months after the birthday party, I ran into Brenda by accident at a grocery store. She looked tired and older than I remembered, wearing a store uniform and restocking shelves. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other across the aisle. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen her. But another part, the part that had fought so hard for justice, needed to know if she understood what she'd done. I walked over slowly. Brenda, she flinched at my voice. Stanley. Her voice was small, defeated. How are you? It was such a normal question, so strange after everything. I'm good, I said honestly. The business is doing well. Life is peaceful. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. That's good. I'm glad. An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, Brenda spoke again. I was wrong. About everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but... She looked up, and I saw real regret in her eyes for the first time. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. Sorry seemed like such a small word for such a big betrayal. I hope you figure things out. I finally said. It was the most generous thing I could offer. Brenda's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. I hope you're happy, Stanley. You deserve it. Then she walked away, disappearing down another aisle. I stood there for a moment, feeling strange. Not angry, not sad, just finished. That chapter of my life was truly over. A year after everything fell apart, I attended a charity gala that my design company sponsored. I wore a stunning blue dress, my hair done professionally, feeling confident and strong. I'd rebuilt my life into something beautiful, something that was truly mine. At the gala, I met someone. His name was Wayne Harper, Denise's brother. He was a teacher, kind and genuine, with laugh lines around his eyes and a gentle sense of humor. We talked for hours about art, books, life. He knew nothing about my inheritance or my past drama. He just liked me for me. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I hesitated. Could I trust again? Could I open my heart after Brenda had shattered it so completely? Wayne must have seen the fear in my eyes because he smiled gently. No pressure, he said, but I'd really like to get to know you better. Just coffee, just conversation, nothing scary. I smiled despite myself. Just coffee, I agreed, writing down my number. Over the next few months, Wayne and I took things slowly. He was patient with my trust issues, understanding when I needed space, supportive without being pushy. We went on simple dates, walks in the park, museum visits, cooking dinner together. It was easy, natural, real. Nothing like the performance my relationship with Brenda had been. I started to believe in love again. 2 years after the betrayal, I was standing in my grandmother's countryside house, looking out the window at the gardens I'd restored. Roses bloomed everywhere, Grandma Rose's favorites. The house was filled with sunlight and peace. Wayne was in the kitchen making lunch. We'd been dating for over a year now, and he'd moved in 3 months ago. It felt right having him here, sharing this space that meant so much to me. My design business had grown beyond my wildest dreams. I had a small team now, and we worked on projects I was genuinely proud of. The inheritance had given me freedom, but my own skills and hard work had built the success. I'd proven I didn't need anyone to save me or define me. My phone buzzed with a text from Carolyn. Guess who just got engaged? followed by a photo of her hand with a gorgeous ring. I grinned and called her immediately. "Tell me everything," I demanded. As she excitedly described her fiancé and the proposal, I felt genuinely happy for her. We'd both survived the storm and found sunshine on the other side. Wayne came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's perfect," I said, meaning it completely. I thought about the girl I'd been 2 years ago, trusting, naive, willing to ignore red flags because I wanted to believe the best in people. She was gone now, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, more careful, but not closed off. I'd learned to protect myself without becoming hard, to trust again without being blind, to love without losing myself. I never saw Kevin again after the scandal. I heard through mutual contacts that he left town, possibly left the state. His legal career was over, his reputation destroyed. Sometimes I wondered if he ever thought about what he'd done, if he ever regretted choosing greed over friendship. Probably not. Men like Kevin rarely learned from their mistakes. Brenda I saw occasionally from a distance, at the grocery store, once at a gas station. She never approached me again after that conversation in the store aisle. I heard she eventually moved to a different city, starting over somewhere no one knew her story. I hoped she'd become a better person. I hoped the consequences had taught her something about integrity and respect. But whether she changed or not wasn't my problem anymore. My life had moved forward without her. The inheritance that had caused so much drama became a tool for good. I donated regularly to charities my grandmother had supported. I created a scholarship fund in her name for students studying art and design. I invested in local businesses and helped friends start their own ventures. The money hadn't corrupted me the way it had corrupted Brenda and Kevin. Instead, it amplified who I already was, someone who wanted to build things, create beauty, help others succeed. Grandma Rose would have been proud. That thought mattered more to me than any amount of money ever could. Standing in my grandmother's house with Wayne beside me, looking at the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal, I finally felt complete peace. The storm had passed. The damage had been repaired. I'd turned pain into power, betrayal into wisdom, victimhood into victory. Brenda had tried to steal my inheritance, my dignity, my future. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift of all. She'd shown me my own strength. I'd learned I could stand up for myself, fight back, demand justice. I discovered I was smart enough, brave enough, strong enough to protect what was mine. The tables had turned in the most spectacular way possible. Brenda and Kevin had lost everything. Their reputations, their careers, their relationships, their self-respect. Meanwhile, I'd gained everything. Freedom, success, real love, genuine peace. I wasn't the naive woman who'd frozen in the doorway watching her wife betray her. I was Stanley Griffin, survivor, fighter, winner. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. Fight smart, not angry. I'd done exactly that, and I'd won. The betrayal had awakened something fierce in me, something that refused to be a victim. I'd used that fire to burn away the lies and build something true. This was my life now, beautiful, honest, hard-earned, completely mine. And nothing, absolutely nothing, could take that away from me. I'd turned the tables, and I'd never looked back. This was my victory. This was my peace. This was my happy ending, earned through strength, patience, and perfect revenge. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please like the video so it reaches more people. Share it with someone who might need it, and leave a comment with your thoughts or how you might have handled the situation. Most importantly, subscribe so you do not miss the next story. Your support truly keeps this going.